Hey, good morning everybody. So as you may know, I've worked in bike shops from the late 1990s to about the mid 2000s. And so I've done everything from, build bikes and repair bikes to sell bikes and deal with difficult customers sometimes. Basically everything that you have to do as a shop employee. But the one thing I've never actually learned how to do is to build wheels from scratch. So I'm actually on my way down to meet Charles, who owns Verum Velo in San Diego, California, and he's going to give me, and by extension you, a rundown on basically what it takes to put together a solid wheel set. And so hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have built up a brand new wheel set for a 26er project that I'm working on. Now Charles is what you would consider like a master wheel builder. He's basically been building wheels since 1984. He got certified in 1995 as a precision wheel builder through DT Swiss. And he's basically been building high-end custom wheel sets ever since. What is driving Verum? Like, why did you start Verum in the first place?
It was a response to frustration. It was mostly coming out of the rim space, right? Because there were so many limitations with what was available in the high-end carbon rims that everybody was after. When it was the rim brake era, it was 24-hole rear and 20-hole front. That was what you could get, you know? And that's not appropriate for everybody. The other thing that absolutely drove me crazy, and I get it, the expensive part of making a carbon rim is designing and building the mold. But when we transition to designing disc-specific rims, now, what's the excuse for not making an asymmetric rim? Asymmetry contributes so much to wheel durability, especially when we're talking about a disc brake wheel. You did a video on that. It was great. It was one of the reasons I reached out to you, actually, initially. Yeah. So I didn't have that option with the big wheel brands. It's weird, like, I told you I built my first wheel in 1984. And I trudged along building wheels for about a decade before I took that DT class. And that just lit me up. And I've been this excited about wheels since I think I took that class in 95. It's funny because this is my favorite wheel building book, right? And it's the Gerd Schrainer, The Art of Wheel Building. But I always bristle when people call it an art because I think it's a craft. And I'm proud that it's a craft, and I'm proud that I do it really well. But I'm not an artist. I'm a craftsman, right? So once we've determined what materials we're going to use, then we do the spoke calculation. I mentioned to you that I did some prep work to this rim, essentially chamfering the spoke holes on the inside. I hope this illustration makes it obvious why. If you just use the machined rim, those edges are hard, square. By chamfering that, we're increasing the surface area contact, and we're reducing the likelihood of the rim eyelet cracking. Good. So we're going to start you on the rear wheel. Okay. I work from this side, because if I work from this side, I keep layering over the spoke that I'm trying to get up, right? Sure. So I work counterclockwise around this one. And again, I'm just kind of, pushing down on this so that I'm not dragging.
You're not scraping across all of it.
Yeah.
So the next one will land here.
Yeah.
From here.
Now I'm just going to drop in all these, the rest of the heads and spokes for that side. Okay. And it's why we don't need to flip the wheel, because and then we'll have to flip it one last time to get the other side in. Learning to get those first three in the right place initially, and then actually that first spoke that we install on the non-drive side. That one is a little tricky. It's a visual trick to identifying it. Now it's just gently bending those to interlace them. As you said, don't scratch the rim. Thing is, it's easy to do. The cut end of this spoke where it's threaded is, sharp. It's sharp. Yeah. Right.
So I see the 3 cross now. It just means that every spoke will cross 3 other spokes between the hub and the rim.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching, by the way, who is proficient at wheel building, This is probably painful for you to watch me do this.
So this one, we're sort of doing the same thing. We don't even have to think about where it's going.
Right.
Right.
But once you know what to look for, you're just seeing that it's doing the 3 across. Once I see the pattern, I can follow it. But it's establishing the pattern that would be the hard part.
And that's, again, that's why I focus on those first 3 spokes to establish the pattern.
Sure. Right, so I'm going over this one.
Yeah, exactly.
And then to here.
Yeah, so it crosses 1, 2, and then that's your 3rd one.
I think we did it.
There we go. Phase 1 complete.
All right, so wheel is laced, and then now we're in the truing stand.
One of the things that's going to make wheel building relatively easy for us is that we're going to set the depth of each nipple relative to the spoke threads at the same point. And we do that with this tool. So start at the valve hole. So I'm just gently, bending that spoke, trying to hold this straight, and then I'll just drive that in. Give that a whirl.
All right.
That's going to give us a nice even starting point.
Okay. So about like that?
Yeah, yeah. Not having built this wheel configuration before, I'm just guessing, but I think we're going to start with 5 full turns on each nipple. But the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is to finish either, in this sort of, I'm going to call it a diamond shape or a square shape relative to the brake track of the rim. The reason I want to do that is because as we get more tension on this wheel, we're going to switch. We're going to do 1 full turn, and then sometimes I'm going to ask you to do a half a turn. If I'm diamond and I ask you to do 1/8 of a turn, right, then you're going to finish square, right? If you're square and I ask you to do 1/8 of a turn, then you're going to finish diamond, right? But if they're askew, if they're all over the place, then it's just an easy reference, right? I try and make things easier on my old brain.
Yeah, so it looks like we're starting to build up some tension.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so now, let's see if we can show it here. There's a bow in the spoke here and here, right? Depending on which way it's coming out of the hub.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is straighten the spoke so it creates the straightest line from the hub flange to the rim. The result, and why it builds a more reliable wheel, is because anything that reduces spoke movement as the wheel cycles extends the longevity of the spokes. It's just a fatigue thing. Pressing down gently,
I see it.
I'm straightening out this spoke and this spoke. A little tough for me to do it at this angle. But you want to do it gently. If you overbend it, then you create a bend the other way and a stress riser.
It's
right?
harder to correct.
Probably. Yeah, it's not that hard to correct. You just replace the spokes.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm just going to go around this whole side of the wheel and do each of those, and it's a gentle bend. So once you give this side a try.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah. When we do this, we do it relatively close to the hub flange without touching the hub flange, right? Because we don't want to scratch the hub. But yeah, perfect.
Like that.
Yeah. And you see the difference in the plane of these versus the, right?
Yeah.
That's all
this
we're
one's
doing.
nice and straight. This one's still bowed out a little bit.
Yeah. No, it looks great.
Okay.
So that process essentially loosened up our spokes again.
Oh, okay.
Not a lot, a little. And so now, while they're just a little bit loose, we're going to apply just a little lubricant to the interface between the rim and the nipple.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I do it at this stage is I want these nipples all the way out because I'm trying to get as little of this stuff on the wrench flats as possible. This is going to make building the wheels up to tension a little bit easier for us. I'm also going to do a smaller adjustment on these two than I am on these two.
Right.
Because the center of the run out is right here. There's very little run out in this. It's a byproduct of 2 things. It's a byproduct of starting at the exact same point and then you being consistent when you were adding tension, right? So this one I'm going to do a 1/4 turn. Now, when the spokes start to be under tension, you'll notice that I'm overturning the spoke by a half a turn, right? And that's to prevent windup. By doing that, we're essentially doing one of the stress relieving activities constantly as we're building.
Right.
And we don't have to manhandle the wheel after the fact. How many times have you jumped on a wheel? All you hear is ping, 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 and it happens for 10 yards, and then you never hear it again.
Yeah.
Right? That's all the spokes unwinding. That's all that is. Right? You'll never hear that from one of my wheels.
Okay.
So now we're going to get that pin up under there. So when I'm wheel building, usually I'm listening to music or listening to a podcast. When I get to the final radial adjustments, turn the music off because I need to be able to hear, So we've got just one spot. Yeah, I'm going to call it a high spot because it's furthest away from the center line of the axle, right? The truth is, I'm not saying this is an excuse to leave it alone. We're going to adjust it. But this wheel is already rounder than most production wheels, right? With radial adjustments, the spoke adjustment that we're making is the same on both sides.
Right.
Because we're either tightening it to pull it in toward the axle, or we're releasing tension to allow the rim to move away from the axle. I'm just guessing, I think a quarter of a turn will do it. So again, because I'm tightening, so that's my quarter, then I'm overshooting it by a half. And then coming back. Yeah.
There you go.
Good guess. So now I'm going to make some noise. This is going to be unpleasant. Release this so the pin is touching. Right? Yeah. Just as importantly as the high spot, I want to catch the low spots.
Oh. Okay.
Right? Every cycle, I'm just going to pull it out a little bit. And when I hear nothing, I know I've got a low spot. Right? We got a couple of them. They're really minor, but let's see if we can bump it out a little bit. Okay, so there's a spot right there, those two, spot, right? So I'll release those a quarter. And again, releasing it, we don't need to overshoot it. Right? Things get funky around the seam, and we just have to live with it. The seam is where the biggest inconsistency in the material is. So we're going to start touching this wheel with the tensiometer, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check our tensiometer. This tool allows us to check the calibration on the tensiometer. This is the same spoke that we're using in this wheel. It's a DT Competition 14-15 gauge butted spoke, and that's actually right at the correct calibration. So all that means to me is I haven't dropped this thing too many times, right? But I always check it because I'm not the only one who uses it, right? And if it gets dropped, it can affect it. But I want you to observe that the result is dependent on how I hold the tensio. What I try and do is hold it up and unweight it, right? I can get a very different reading. Whoops, if I'm down here into the butt, right? See how that changes, or if I'm up here, closer to where the spokes cross. All this tool is doing is measuring the deflection. And it relates the deflection to a tension. Right? I basically have this thing where I'm unweighting this. So now I'm just going to go through. We're just going to measure every spoke, right? And you can see how different they are. Now, why are these spokes consistently higher than these spokes?
Oh,
remember,
because they're on the outside.
Yeah. The outside are traveling further. Right. So we expect those to be tighter. Okay. So nothing weird is happening here. But we're going to even it out. Right? Look how low that one is. I am going to alternate every other spoke, loosening a quarter and tightening a quarter. So you're bringing that side spokes help change the imbalance between the elbow out and the elbow in.
That makes sense.
Okay? Let's observe what happened to our spoke tension. I generally try and remember what the first spoke was, and it was 1.3 before. So now it's 1.2. This one was like 0.6. Now it's 0.7. It did what I hoped. Right. It drew them in. So I like that result. I'm going to do it one more time. All right. You
can blast through it.
Yeah. So I'm going to start evening these out. So it's just that little bit that we're out. So if you look at that now, and that's
Not even
it's a millimeter and a half.
Yeah.
Then we're out of dish by half that.
Right.
Have to correct it.
At what point is it like?
So with a bladed spoke, I'm going to get the dish perfect.
Okay.
If I can fit a piece of paper in there, that's too much. Right?
Okay.
With round spoke wheels, if I get the dish exactly perfect, that was just luck.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but personally, my standards, if it's less than half a millimeter, then I'm cool with it. I don't want to obsess too much over dish though, and see how much we close that gap.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's less than half a millimeter. Yeah. That, my friend, is a wheel I can be proud of, or we can be proud of.
Yeah, that's generous of you.
Yeah. So, bam.
All right, well these, I think these came out excellent. If I were to summarize, spoke calculations, get your spokes, get all your stuff, lace in the proper lacing pattern. Mm-hmm. In this case, 3 cross. And then build up the tension gradually and evenly. But meanwhile, you're kind of interspersing, checking lateral thru versus radial hops.
Yeah.
And then we kind of save dish for later in the process.
Yeah, dish winds up being the thing we do after we've approached final tension on the drive side, or in the case of the front wheel, the disc brake side.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
If we get the process right and we've overshot the dish to the drive side, then we're pulling it into dish using the low tension side of the wheel.
It all makes sense when you say it.
Yeah.
But these are things that, like, I think a beginner would never even think of. Right. Can't thank you enough. This was awesome for me.
It was cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Charles.
All right.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah. What a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
All right, well, there you go. I got a brand new wheel set for the 26er. Went with the Velocity Cliffhangers because I wanted the wide inner rim width. Set of DT350s because they're just good solid hubs. I also have the option to run disc brakes or rim brakes, as well as convert between through axle and quick release. So it's a really versatile wheel set. Really happy with the final result. What I wasn't expecting is just how intricate wheel building can be. Obviously there's some fundamental concepts, but outside of that, there's a lot of personal choices and preferences that go into building these wheels. And I definitely appreciate Charles' willingness to kind of pull back the curtain, so to speak, and just kind of share with us some of his process. Obviously, this is not really a how-to video, more just a video documenting the wheel building process. If you have any questions about my experience with this wheel building process, just drop them down below. Myself or maybe Charles would be happy to get involved in the comments and answer some questions. It's gonna do it for this one. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.